Now you should notice at this point that we've not really done anything, right? These are again just right off of the Windows DVD media. And I've done that on purpose because I want to show you just the basic ways in which WDS can be used to deploy an image. Let's actually, with no further configuration thus far, go about creating a brand new virtual machine that will then attempt to connect to our DHCP server, attempt to PXE boot, and then attempt to deploy an operating system onto. I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to go off the screen here for just a second to create a new virtual machine here in VMware Workstation. I'm again kind of breaking the fourth wall here and showing you the backstage view of the virtual machines that I'm creating. I do this because I want to create a bare bones VM that doesn't have any kind of operating system installed onto it. We'll create this as a Workstation 11 machine, but we'll choose to install the operating system later. We're not going to connect it up directly to a DVD ISO file or anything. We're going to use PXE as the mechanism to deploy that ISO file to this machine. I'll choose Next here, and then the Windows Server, actually I need to do Windows 8 x64 operating system. I'll just give it a basic machine name and location and all the basics here. Single processor, 2 gigs of RAM, bridged networking, and then all the other defaults here just to get me to the point where I can boot this virtual machine. With this virtual machine now created, let's power it on so that we can take a look at the steps we're going to go through in order to connect up to WDS. Notice here that we're now booting via PXE and attempting to contact our DHCP server. This is the MAC address for the machine. This is the GUID for this machine. This GUID will be unique for this connection between the machine and my WDS infrastructure. Pay attention to this because I'll show you where this becomes important here in just a second. Notice how we have now connected up here from DHCP now over to our WDS infrastructure. And WDS is saying, all right, well, here is your connection. You are now awaiting approval from the administrator. If you recall, not long ago, we actually checked the box that said we need to approve any unknown computers before we deploy an operating system to them. Let me go ahead and show you where you can now make that approval. And it's here where, if I click back here onto our server file 1, where I can show you this node over here in the WDS tree called Pending Devices. Notice this pending device over here. This is the one that we just attached right here. I can take a look at this device and right-click it to choose whether or not I want to approve the pending request, reject the pending request, or name and approve the pending request. If you recall back earlier, we were talking about how WDS kind of wants to give this machine a randomized name, which for a lot of environments just isn't going to fly because we want to give those machines a specific name. Well, it's this name and approve right here where I can define more information about the machine, specifically the name that I want to give it as I go through deploying this operating system. This device name, let's call this my desktop number 3, for example. This will be my desktop number 3. It can be whatever you want. It's the NetBIOS name associated with the machine. I can also identify whether I want to put it in the default OU, which in our case will be the company computers OU, or a different one. I can identify what the referral server would be, or essentially where it should get its boot.wim file. Also, which boot program and which boot image it should download as well. These can all be left blank if you just want to choose the defaults. If I choose Next again, I can identify here what the unattend file should be for getting that machine bootstrapped. So this would be the first of those 2 unattend files. Choosing Next again allows me to identify what the user settings and device settings should be. So you see here this name and approve wizard gives me some really good control over bringing this machine online and also getting it into my Active Directory domain. If I choose Finish here, this will now complete the name and approve process. And if I flip back over here to my Windows 8 machine, we should see after a second or so that WDS has given the instruction here to this machine to begin deploying the boot.wim file and bootstrapping itself into Windows PE. Notice here that we're now booting into Windows PE. This is, as I said, the boot.wim right here that we're downloading from our Windows deployment server. You should see a copy of Windows PE that looks very similar to what we started this module with. That copy of Windows PE is really similar to essentially what you get right out of the DVD media. However, this time it's being delivered from your WDS server as opposed to being delivered from a DVD or from a USB stick. One of the neat parts about WDS's use of WinPE is that it provides a lot more granular control over this experience. We're not going to see this granular control here at this point. In fact, what we're seeing here looks quite a bit like what you would normally do with just a regular DVD in the drive. But as you get a little bit more experienced with WDS, and particularly those unattend.xml files, you can actually eliminate all of these screens to ensure that a new operating system gets deployed without any clicks at all. Let me just show you here just very basic. So if I click next here, that will initiate a connection back to my WDS server. Remember, I'm currently using the boot.wim file. I need to connect over the network using the Windows protocols to access the install.wim file. And so for that reason, I have to log in with a domain username and password to access the share. Always important to punch in that password correctly. Once it connects up to that install.wim file, we'll then see which operating systems we can install. This is the Windows 8.1 Enterprise operating system that exists. If I had a long list of potential install images, I would see all of them here. I need only to choose which one I want, click the next button over here, and then the other characteristics that normally correspond with an OS installation. So this gives you an idea of, at its very basic, what WDS can provide for you. I don't have to run around with DVDs in order to accomplish this. I just simply turn on the machine and allow that process to complete over the network.